Welcome to the Cambridge Financial Podcast with Bert Salazar, CEO at Cambridge Financial Partners, LLC. This podcast is all about tax-preferred retirement planning, economics, financial risk management, and achieving a risk-free and successful financial life. Now, your host, Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar.
Hey, good day everyone. My name is Bert Salazar and I'm going to be the host of the Bert Salazar Retirement Show, as I am with you every single week, and I'm hoping that all of you had a great 4th of July weekend. Obviously, my family and I had a really good one as well. So I want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about a story that took place a week ago. I actually was referred to a client about a week and a half ago. Well, it's been over 2 weeks, but we were able to talk to one another last week. And for those of you that may not know, this is episode 178. And the title for this episode is Retirement, How Will You Live and How Will You Die? So in having this conversation with the client is 58 years of age. He's married. His wife is 56 years of age. And they've been doing fairly well financially, and they've been using a number of different financial planners and, financial advisors over the last 25, 30 years. Interesting enough, I was given the opportunity to kind of take a look at everything that they had done and where they were at in relation to retirement, because the husband wants to retire. Like I said, he's 58 years of age today. He wants to retire at 63, so a little bit early, and his wife is 56, and she does want to retire at 63 as well, but obviously she would retire a couple of years after he would retire. So we kind of went through a lot of the issues and the concerns that they both had, and before I even embarked on the opportunity to review their statements, their account statements, their 401ks, their IRAs, their insurance program, their investment program, all of that. I said, look, put all that away and let's just have a conversation. Now, this was done over a video conference, which is how it is that I run my practice. Because I run a virtual firm just about for each and every one of my clients. I would say 98% of my clients, we do business online as opposed to a face-to-face meeting. So first thing I wanted to share with them was, my formula to retirement distribution planning for married couples. And the reason why I wanted to put that on the table right off the bat is that the vast majority of my competitors in the marketplace do not take the time to truly explain to the clients that retirement has two sections. You have the accumulation section, which is, as they are today, because they're still working, they're still employed, they're still being productive. They're putting money away in their 401ks, their IRAs, their insurance programs, their other pensions that they have because the husband has his own business. So obviously they're in the accumulation stage. So the money that they're setting aside is not money that they're going to need immediately, but they will need that money in the future. The problem is that the vast majority of the clients that I engage for the first time, even those that are already in retirement, they're using the accumulation strategies and the techniques, and they're taking those same strategies and applying them once they're in retirement. And what they fail to realize is there's a big difference between retirement accumulation and retirement distribution. The rules of engagement totally change. And getting clients to kind of make a, how should I call this, a paradigm shift in going from accumulation to distribution is very challenging because the only thing they've ever known is about accumulation. So I explained to them that in dealing with married couples, my formula to retirement is long, 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 short, short, long, and short, short. Now I'll explain what each and every one of those means in a few minutes. And by the way, these are topics that I have talked about in other retirement podcasts that I have done and seminars, but I think it's important to understand how to view retirement from an economic standpoint as opposed to a mathematical perspective. Now, I also had a conversation with these two clients about, what I consider to be the retirement red zone, the red zone of retirement, which means the 5 years preceding retirement, then the first 5 years post-retirement. And that 10-year period, the 5 years before you retire, and the first 5 years after retirement is what I call the red zone, because it's a very critical stage. Any mistakes that you make in those pre-5 or the post-5 can be detrimental to your retirement life and that of your family. So, we had a conversation about what that all meant. Now, in figuring out the retirement distribution planning, one of the features of my formula is safety first retirement. Because I want to make certain that my clients upon retirement, they have safety on their side of the ledger. Because if they have safety on their side of the ledger, the money's going to last a lot longer than if they're doing this on an arbitrary basis and they really have no clue about the differences between accumulation and distribution. The second part of my formula goes from safety first to retirement guarantees. 100% of the clients that I have that are currently in retirement, and that's my specialty, retirement distribution planning, will tell me that if they had a choice, they would want to have 100% of their retirement income coming from guaranteed sources. So if I were to ask you in retirement, what percentage of your income do you want guaranteed? If it's not 100%, then you should perhaps make an appointment and go see a psychologist because you have to be totally out of your mind to think otherwise. And then the third part of my formula to retirement distribution planning is to what I call the rule of 100 to manage retirement risk. So depending on your age, as you get older, you should be increasing your retirement guarantees and your safety precautions and your safety rules of engagement when it comes to retirement distribution. Now, what do I mean by the rule of 100? Well, that means that you take your age from 100, and the difference is what you may want to have invested where guarantees are not guaranteed. So, for instance, if you're 60 years of age, 60% of your money should be in guaranteed and or safety net accounts. And then 40% you could diversify in other areas and so forth. If you were 70 years of age, then it would be 70% on guaranteed and safety accounts, and then the other 30% should be earmarked for other investments and the like. So, because you have to also remember that if you suffer a 40% loss in the market or in your account values today, it actually requires a 67% rate of return in 1 year just to break even from that 40% loss. So it's a lot easier to lose money than it is to break even. So as you get older in life, you want to make certain that you can minimize your losses while you maximize your internal rate of return and your retirement guarantees along those lines. By the same token, part of the formula that I use with my clients is how to create simplicity. Because at the end of the day, it's important to simplify in order to multiply your retirement benefits in your life. If your retirement life is quite complex, and it's a type of retirement life that you have to look at your investments every single day, or every time you're going to make a financial decision or a personal life decision for you and your family, you have to go back and look at your finances. It's not going to be a very apropos retirement life, because at the end of the day, it's important to simplify in order to multiply. So obviously, your wills and your trust should be frequently updated. I would argue every 2 to 3 years you should kind of revisit your wills and trust, because things are about to change. Your healthcare proxies should be frequently updated as well. Someone is going to have to make a decision on your behalf when you may not be able to make those decisions for yourself. So who are you going to assign? Who you're going to give that responsibility to? What are some of the things that you want? What are some of the things that you don't want when it comes to ending your life and so forth? And these are things that are critically important that most retirees very seldom think about. They're only thinking about the rate of return that they can get on their investments or whatever new investment that comes down the pike that they want to invest in. By the same token, since we're talking about wills and trust and we're talking about healthcare proxies, it is very important that you have a long-term care conversation not only with yourself, but most important with your immediate family. Because, if getting old is bad, and getting old is good from the fact that you have lived a long life, you're going to have a lot of medical issues as you get older that may require you for you to be either in some kind of a healthcare center. Perhaps you need to be in a nursing home or an assisted living facility or whatever that may be. And you need to make certain that you have all of those conversations and topics in writing so the right decision can be made for you at the right time and for the right reason. So let's talk a little bit about the breakdown of the long, short, long, and short, which is my formula to retirement distribution success and planning. Well, when I say long, it means that if you're a husband and wife and you're married, let's say you as the husband is going to live a long life, and then you as the wife is going to live also a long life. So let's say the husband is living into his mid-80s, and then the wife is also going to live into her mid-80s. Now, if there's an age disparity between the husband and wife, you need to be able to provide for that. So when you're living a long life, both of you are living a long life, not only do you have to worry about the rate of return that you're receiving on your investments, you also have to be worried about inflation. You have to worry about taxation on those dollars that you're taking out of your retirement accounts. You also want to make certain that you don't run out of money before you run out of life. Because if getting old is bad, getting old and having no money is even worse. If you're ever going to bounce a check, let it be to the undertaker and not to anyone else, especially to yourself and your family. So living a long life, although it's a good thing if you're in good shape, it brings about many challenges, obviously opportunities, but most important, many challenges about money management and tax planning and inflation planning that you wouldn't have otherwise. So the type of planning there is one that you need to look at very closely. How long did your parents live? Do you have any siblings? Are they older? How long have they lived? Are they still alive? Do you have longevity on your side of the family? If you do, the type of planning that you're going to do is not necessarily about products, it's about process. Because if you don't have the right process in place, I don't care what kind of product you purchase, more than likely you will fail almost 100% of the time. Now, the second part of the four ways that a married couple may live is that it could be a long short instead of a long long. That means that the husband lives a long life and the surviving spouse lives a short life, which means in my case, I want to make certain that I can protect my family and my wife in retirement. I have been the breadwinner for many, many years. So I want to make certain that if something were to happen to me, that my wife is going to be fully protected. But what if she's the first one to go? Well, when you're married, and if you're in retirement, and you're in your mid-60s, and if you're the husband and your wife passes away, see, up until that time, if you're receiving Social Security benefits, you have been receiving 2 paychecks. The minute that your surviving spouse, that was supposed to be your surviving spouse, passes away before you do, then the rules of engagement totally change. Because now it's only going to be one Social Security retirement check. And therefore, there are going to be other challenges that are going to be assigned to that because taxes will continue to increase. Inflation is another tax that you're going to have to deal with. And then obviously that additional income is not going to be there because, yeah, you'll get to pick the higher one of the 2 Social Security benefits, but it will only be one Social Security benefit as opposed to 2. So a lot of the planning that I do for my clients is how to do, Social Security replacement at the first death. And most advisors have never talked to their clients about that. As a matter of fact, when I finished this conversation with these 2 clients, the first thing that they said to me was, Bert, no one in the last 25 years has ever talked to us about all these issues, and my wife is here sitting next to me writing all kinds of notes because these are new things that we have never been advised on. And shame on them because somebody should have. Well, not shame on them, shame on those financial advisors, because if they were truly retirement strategists, they should have been having these discussions with these 2 clients, for 25 years or even longer than that. So there's planning for the long, long, where both are going to live a long life. There's also planning for the long, short, and also depending which one of the 2s has the most assets. And then the third one, way of living, if you're a married couple, is not long, long or long, short. It will be short, long. That means that the husband, in this case, if he, in this example with my 2 clients, he was the one that earned the most amount of income in the family unit. What if he were to die short, or in other words, he lives a short life and then dies in retirement, and then his wife continues on and lives a long life? By the way, I've been doing pension maximization for the last 35 years, and the definition for federal employees of someone living a short life is that they die within the first 5 years in retirement. And that would be considered a short life. Approximately 20 to 25% of Americans died within 5 years of retirement. And now maybe even higher than that because people are working a lot longer. So that means that they're going to work a lot longer before they retire, and then they're going to die soon thereafter. So if that's a case where you're going to have the breadwinner have a short life, well, that breadwinner has to do a lot of planning because you want to make certain that you take care of the surviving spouse for many years to come. And what kind of planning are you going to do? How are you going to divvy up your assets? What assets are you going to be invading first? Are you going to retirement assets? What kind of asset protection are you going to have in your portfolio? How much income is your surviving spouse going to need to take her through her retirement life? Those are questions that need to be answered. Now, there are mathematical formulas, but the process is more important than the mathematics. Because, like for instance, life insurance at that point in time becomes asset insurance, because upon the death of a breadwinner, then when that income stops, then there's going to be an immediate asset influx of income that will be paid to that surviving spouse on a tax-free basis in order for her, in this case, because I'm talking about these two clients that I had my visit with last week, in order for her to continue to maintain her lifestyle in the future, because at the end of the day, tomorrow is promised to no one. So there's a different type of planning that is done in that scenario. And then the last scenario, which would be the fourth one. So we've talked about the long, the long short, the short long, and the short is when both husband and wife have a short life and they retired. And, like in my case, and my parents, my mom was 4 years older than my dad, so she passed away at 76, and my dad passed away at 72. So in reality, they had a fairly short life, and my mom and dad worked into their late 60s. So that kind of tells you the situation there. And then that brings about another issue. What happens with those assets that remain? Who's going to get them? What family members are going to be up to it? Who's going to be in control of those assets, and for whom? What if you have a special needs child in the family? The needs and the liability for you as a parent of a special needs child goes far beyond your death, because a special needs child is going to have special needs for his or her entire life. So how are you going to segment those assets? How are you going to make certain that if your kids were to get those assets, that they're not going to blow it? Now, they could eventually, obviously, if they're not economically savvy, but at the end of the day, can you structure them in such a way that you can kind of save them from themselves? And that would be important. Also remember that when both of you, husband and wife, you go into retirement, there are 3 stages of retirement. So you have your go-go years, you have your slow-go years, and you have your no-go years. So for instance, if you're between the ages, your mid-60s and your mid-70s, that's what I consider in my planning the go-go years. You're still fairly healthy. You want to do things in life that perhaps you never got around to do, or you were too busy working and saving money for retirement. You want to travel. You want to see the world. And that kind of life. Remember, retirement savings is nothing more and nothing less than delayed expenditures, because you're saving now, so you would earn the right to spend those assets at some point in time in the future, so they can carry you through your lifetime. Now, once you get into your mid-70s, your health is not going to be as good as it was during your mid-60s. So between your mid-70s and your mid-80s, that's what I call the slow-go years. You're still doing things. You may still be traveling a bit. You may not be traveling as much as you did during the go-go years, or as far as you did during the go-go years. You may find yourself staying closer to home, so you can be with your family, your grandchildren, your children, obviously, your close friends and people that know you, like you, and trust you. So you're kind of still doing things, but not as much as you did before, so you're slowing down. Those are the slow-go years. And then once you get into your mid-80s until the time that you pass away, that's what I call the no-go years. Many of my clients, a number of my clients are in the no-go years now, and they basically tell me, says, Bert, every time I wake up in the morning, on the green side of the grass, it's a good day. Now, there some of them, I have clients that are still very healthy. I have a client that is 84 years of age, and he used to do marathons. Now he's doing half marathons at the age of 84. So he's in extremely good shape. But sadly enough, for the vast majority of the clients that I deal with, that's not necessarily the case. One of the health tips, and I'm not a physician, but one of the health tips that I give a lot of my clients as they start preparing for retirement is that the healthier they are in retirement, the better off their retirement life is going to be. So I encourage them to exercise. I encourage them to do some research on intermittent fasting, which is something that I've been doing now, for quite some time, and it works really, really well. It keeps me in good shape and within my weight guidelines and so forth, and it's very, very good for your body. So I encourage each and every one of you that, if you want to be in good shape by the time you get to 65, when do you want to start working out and getting in shape? At 64, or do you want to do it today when you're a lot younger? So I would encourage you to start thinking about doing it sooner rather than later. So at the end of the day, my conversation with these clients, and by the way, they were blown out of the water because of the fact that no one had actually talked to them about retirement life the way I did, even before I would even consider having to take a look at their financial statements and do an audit and any of that, because if we're not able to understand each other from an economic standpoint, then it doesn't make any sense for me to waste the time or their time, my time and their time, in reviewing assets when we're not going to understand each other financially and we're not going to agree financially. One final point that I like to make on this podcast is that, many of you, and I'm sure all of you listening to me, you've had an opportunity to meet with other financial advisors. Some of you are still working with them. You may be working with more than one. And if you're satisfied for those services, well, then good for you. I'm glad that you're getting that kind of feedback. If the things that I'm talking to you about are conversations that you haven't had with your financial advisors, then you either need to have that conversation with your financial advisor, or you may want to find another financial advisor, because that one is not going to take you to the promised land. Because at the end of the day, from a conceptual standpoint, because most of the clients that I engage for the first time, for them is all about products and rates of returns and so forth. What I say to them is that, methods are many and principles are few. Methods in many different ways are always changing, yet principles never do. So the principles of economics, the principles of finance, these are methods that never change. Now, you can apply different methods, but as long as you apply them against the principles of economics, then you're going to be just fine. If you rather take the method and disregard the principle of economics or the principles of economics, chances are you're going to fail miserably. So for those of you that may want to reach out to me, please send me an email. You can send me an email at Bert, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com, BERTSALAZAR.com. For those that may want to reach out, area code 786-766-1042. And always remember, as I say in every single podcast, that my goal for you and for your family is to kind of help all of you, like I did in this podcast, kind of help you change the way that you do things, because when you change the way that you do and see things, the things that you do and change are going to change dramatically for you and for your family for the rest of your life. So remember, my goal is for you to change the way that you see things, because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. So once again, thank you so very much for giving me a few minutes of your time today, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.